Hello again, Hearthstone lore fans. Welcome to Lore of the Cards, the series that looks to inform you about the lore associated with your Hearthstone deck. Today we'll be tackling a legendary. Finding out about the character themselves and their legacy in the Warcraft universe. We'll be exploring Warcraft's very own kingpin, the rogue's Edwin VanCleef. The art of the card is the work of the talented Jesper Ejsing. Sorry about the pronunciation there. The Danish-born artist vowed to become a fantasy artist after leafing through D&D rulebooks on Christmas Day 1986. 20 years later, he would be producing his first D&D illustration, but the road was not easy. He dropped out of university to become a freelance artist and drew whatever he could for money, and after a long slog, started producing exclusively fantasy art. Besides Warcraft, Ejsing has produced art for many other major properties, including Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons and Fantasy Flight games. As well as characters of his own design, Ejsing has made art for several Warcraft lore characters, including Kael'thras, son of Alexstrasza, a mage we're all very familiar with, Jaina Proudmoore, and of course, the legendary Edwin VanCleef. Not much is known about VanCleef's early life, and what is has been written in the non-canon Warcraft RPG series, so take this with a grain of salt. Edwin VanCleef was a roofwalker, a D&D term for an individual who is adept at fighting on rooftops and ledges, and Edwin was particularly good at disabling mechanical defences. He learnt his skills in masonry from his father. But let's not dwell on the non-canon. Let's get to the truth. When the orcs first came to Azeroth from their world of Draenor, they travelled using a magical vortex known as the Dark Portal, which had been opened on the Azeroth side by the Guardian Medivh. The Great Mage was not of sound mind, due to being possessed by Sargeras, Lord of the Burning Legion. While Medivh at his heart was noble and fought Sargeras' corruption, when Sargeras did win over, he was able to use the Guardian's powers to commit great evil and spark the first war between orcs and humans. The orcs' initial attack saw the humans being soundly defeated, their capital of Stormwind, ruled over by the strong-willed Lane Rin, being razed to the ground. So marked the end of the First War. The humans that survived, which likely included Mr. VanCleef, fled their charred capital and sought refuge in the kingdom of Lordaeron. The orcs were relentless and chased the humans, sparking the Second War. The races of Azeroth united to form the Alliance and were able to defeat the Horde comprised of the orcs and their Azerothian allies. The orcs were driven back to where they came from and the portal was destroyed. However, while the construct that held the portal was smashed, the vortex that joined the two worlds remained. After the Horde was vanquished, the Stonemasons Guild was formed, a group of highly skilled human builders and artisans. Edwin VanCleef, an extremely skilled artisan himself, was elected as the guild's leader. Their first commission would be to construct the fortress known as Netherguard Keep. Despite being a costly structure, the fortress had a very important role, to keep an eye on the remains of the Dark Portal, to ensure that there was no second invasion from the orcs. When the orcs did try to invade a second time, the Alliance was able to respond quickly, and were in fact able to venture through the portal and take the fight to the orcs. The guild's next big commission under Edwin's leadership would be to rebuild the huge city of Stormwind, commissioned by the city's House of Nobles. The house is made up of Stormwind's most powerful aristocratic bloodlines and headed by the king, Varian Rin. They perform mainly legislative roles. Edwin led a huge team of artisans and engineers. The restoration of this great city filled many with hope and renewed vigour, and artisans from all over the Eastern Kingdom came to lend their aid, many bringing their families and lives with them. With the government backing, the restorers saw this as an opportunity to showcase their work at its best, and make a good amount of money for their troubles too. With the most competent workforce in all of Azeroth under his leadership, VanCleef was able to help guide the workers to a quick, speedy and glorious restoration. The treatment that the later main capital city of the Alliance humans deserved. After construction, Edwin met with the House of Nobles to receive the money owed to the Stonemasons Guild. Varian Wrynn returned from protecting the kingdom from Orcish raiders, as he had been for the majority of the construction, to find the two parties at each other's throats. The Council of Nobles was refusing to pay the stonemasons what they thought they were due. While Varian did agree with the nobles that the price asked by the masons was extortionate, he also thought that the nobles had offered a pittance. Varian tried to quell the wrath of both parties and work out a compromise, but they were too fired up to engage in rational debate. Varian would later find out one of his advisors, Lady Katarina Prestor, was actually the daughter of the Black Dragon aspect Deathwing, Onyxia. The Black Dragons had turned to a force of evil after being slowly corrupted by the Old Gods, and now, like them, sought to bring ruin to Azeroth. Onyxia was thousands of years old, and as a result had extremely potent magical powers. She found it easy to subtly ensorcel members of both the House of Nobles and the Guild to turn them against each other. A bit of human greed made it even easier for her. VanCleef left the meeting utterly fuming and ready to take extreme action. He spoke out for his workers and protested the nobles' harsh treatment. As a result, the house ordered the stonemasons to disband. This was the tipping point for VanCleef. He had tried using words to get the payment for his workers that he thought they deserved, and had these efforts and his comrades' labour ignored. He and the guild were driven to violence, and set about rioting in the streets of Stormwind. During the riots, Queen Tiffin Wrynn, who had supported the Masons in their protest, was accidentally killed by a hurled rock to the head. Varian, angered by the death of his beloved, expelled the stonemasons from the city, and the guild was disbanded. VanCleef, still feeling betrayed by the kingdom he and his fellows had toiled to rebuild, gathered the guild members and formed the Defias Brotherhood, an organisation that sought to collect the money they were owed and destroy the kingdom that had betrayed them, reducing Stormwind to the same rubble the Orcs had left behind. The Brotherhood started with small-scale crimes, banditry and thievery, a start to collecting the money owed to them. The organisation picked up steam and its membership grew to include a wide range of people, from skilled mercenaries to the plain desperate. With the increase in their membership, the scale of the Brotherhood's crimes also increased, being able to successfully ambush city guard protected caravans and use the resources gathered towards their cause. The initial founding members, like VanCleef, were able to use their considerable skills in engineering to manufacture devices for the Brotherhood to make them even more effective bandits, smoke bombs and automatic crossbows making it into their arsenal. The Brotherhood liaised with Katarina Prestor to kidnap Varian Wrynn. Prestor ripped the king's body into two personalities, his iron will and his dynamic public persona. She planned to kill the man that now represented Varian's will and use the public persona as her puppet. An attack from the Naga saw her plans disturbed, and Varian's will escaped and would later combine again with his other half and defeat Prestor after she was revealed to be Onyxia. But those events transpire away from Edwin's story. With the membership at its height, numbering several hundred, Edwin decided the Brotherhood would need land and resources if they wanted to enact their revenge upon Stormwind. They swept through and dominated the farming continent of Westfall. The Goblins that had joined the Brotherhood made this conquest easier by constructing harvest golems to fight alongside them. They were ruthless in driving the farmers away, burning their fields and salting the earth to make it impossible to grow crops. VanCleef descended into the Dead Mines and made this his base of operations. To learn more about the Deadmines, we also have a dungeon lore video covering the history of this World of Warcraft instance, which used to be called VC in Chat, after VanCleef, the dungeon's final boss, as it shared the same initials as Dire Maul. From his new hideout, VanCleef, with the skilled engineers and masons of the Brotherhood, set about constructing a gargantuan juggernaut. The designs for this ship were very likely provided by the Goblin members, as the Horde used ships of this design in the Second War. VanCleef intended to sail the ship out of the Deadmines, along the coasts of Stranglethorn and Westfall, and bombard Stormwind from the seas, reducing his and his brother's creation down to nothing but a pile of ash. While the ship was completed, VanCleef never got to carry out his revenge. Heroes of the Alliance, basically the players of WoW, assaulted the Deadmines. As they powered their way through, the heroes annihilated members of the Brotherhood that stood in their way, and the pirates that manned the ship, including the legendary Captain Greenskin. Finally, on the deck of his war machine, VanCleef fought for his life, dual-wielding cutlasses with great skill. His loyal brothers aided him, but eventually VanCleef was overwhelmed, killed and decapitated on the spot, so that the Alliance heroes could prove his death. It was claimed the Brotherhood died with Edwin VanCleef. However, hiding in the shadows, as Edwin had his head hacked from his body, was his daughter, Vanessa. Years later, the bitterness from her father's death still burning strongly, Vanessa was disgusted by how many homeless the Kingdom of Stormwind's wars had created, and in her frustration she breathed new life into the Brotherhood, with her as the new figurehead. But that's another story for another time. Better get working on that Vanessa VanCleef legendary. Hey Blizz. The Defias Kingpin, Edwin VanCleef, sought to make his name helping to rebuild the seat of power for the humans of the Alliance. Shunned and betrayed by those he had aided, VanCleef brought together a brotherhood of like-minded souls to enact their vengeance, only to be cut down before achieving his goals. If you have enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, subscribe and share it around. If you have any suggestions or corrections, let me know in the comments section below. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be looking at the lore behind some pissed off poultry. See you then, guys.